1995. Alfred Arteaga reading his new work, Love in a Time of Aftershocks. Alfred, gracias.
Love in the Time of Aftershocks. 1. Absence, the first instance. Loss is in love, the pulse, respite, moment of interval between breaths, inhale, exhale, the moment of pause, think for a moment. Is the stop at lungs fill or lack? Yes, the pause in the rhythm of motion of air life. One can imagine in the in-between of air motion and the weight, the very being, the weight of air, the supporting ether of flight, the weight of wings, diaphanous angels, the breath of wings of that stop that enables the rhyme of flight, the wings of angels. Stopped just then. We are all sure, city of angels, of wings and breaths and air moving, flight suspended just then, an interval of the silent and sure of the very breath of the angels of the city of my birth, the city that infused me life, that wrote me in espiritus, just then, in the in-between of my very breath, moment mine, interval, I breathe between just then. It is like that space between beats within the gap of systole and diastole of heart like drum, between the down and up of beat, just then caught in a rest mid-beat, unsure of the dance, of the very rhythm of itself mid-flight. So it is as it seems, if sight is an arrow and the city of angels lags from its flight, it is just so. Weight of motion and it is past, silent and slight air. See, it is so, city mine. Just then in the pause and in the empty break, arbiter of difference in the lag and gap and stop mid-flow. It is as it seems, mid-flight amid the flap of wings of angels in flight in the city at night. So it means this, and this is what is seen. If what just then is taken for real, if the blank of the clock while we inhale or X is taken as time, is the moment to which it refers, and thus we mean what we separate, this from that, in from out, flight from night, diaphanous flight of mind. Night in the absence of night as its negative, black in the absence of blank as its clone, and time in the shard we cannot gather nor hold, but watch pierce our palms in the shade midday. Just then, but at night in the city of flight, in the flight angelic of the city of night, and pause, silent flow of air, so much like breath of the dead, the angelic, the holy, all in so much faint air motion beatified, just then, and it is not, it is gone. If that can be a present, the gift of time, as in the impossible moment we note just then in the city night between the halves of the beat that rewrites our being, so significant and so real moments of life-making, as in the pause to sigh and finding meaning in its envisioning. So it is so. For it can be no other way if to be others denied strictly on temporal non-parallelism grounds, like the way space is so cleverly impossible to afford the ambiguous. One means what one is, facilely and blind-like. It is not precisely because it is. City of angel, in flight, solo. 2. The inefficiency of sleep. Off Beverly Boulevard, the sense of one woman alone in sleep, as if in art. A script of death, perhaps, for this is Hollywood, and love is all it seems in an act or two. The sense not unlike absence, but not that final awe. Furthermore, the innocent murder of hearts, one in line after the next. Fresh blood in the sense of solitude and the alone of the mammal in hunt, so silent in tracks across the snow, if there ever would be such in this city, this place of such sense where image and sleep conflict in the light of day, in the contact with spoken Spanish on the broad streets, and the traffic of humans waiting for change for some better. A solitude, cruel in its purity, simplicity, and its fine atonement like sacrament by script and brief and fleeting sight. But such is the hard solitude of the image's commodity, and the shadow it tracks across the snow, if such could be, of the emotional city's range. She knows 6.7 is the imprint in the space of her heart, beneath an indifferent breast left in pale nipple. There in the inner enclave, there is nothing left that can be imagined by any string of practiced words, nothing of so severe a number. One that so cuts the organs of emotion, nothing like absence, like patch over well, so buried in the lack that can be imagined by the single foe in the sharp guise of the lover, subject to the unwanted arrow of desire, to white arrows, and the blatant stupid moon, like so much like so dumb unseen air. 6.7 marks her, scent-like, beneath the gloss of skin and the light of camera and the DNA house that breathes and beats her into existence at every instant. But if we can imagine, can extrapolate the shard of instant, the interval between the beats of life into a stretched and expanded span, from the mid-beat to slice of day, night actually of sleep in solitude, then such number and such genetic code mark her, in personal scent of chosen fragrance and secret body, then mark her in the night as solitary, sleeping alone and unwilling to utter anything other than no, in the course of so solitary a sleep. This is the trick of Hollywood. There's nothing beneath the gloss because it truly cannot control time except by illusion, where it lives in words. So the gloss is the meaning, the string of words are to be executed and nothing more. At the cessation of lights, all go home, but there is no home, just place. Just one den for solitary sleep, for sleeping alone like a film can beside so many others, or not, but self-contained and hermetic, with a cleanliness born of its sad inefficiency. So alone it need invent language at every instant if it is to confirm its solitary self, unable in the loneliness of the dumb sleep to reach to the lover a subject of words, and words a subject of language itself, a shared medium. Thus the inefficiency of it all. It is so much easier to hurt alone, to fling arrows to true targets, and to sleep dumb and refuse to have to make up words at every instant than to hold one other. This is the lesson of a city so born in the image of video, in motion represented by magnetic particle arrangements on long ribbons of place. No is the only carryover in the scene of the solitary and the absent, so there is no recourse for the angel's sad breast left exposed, a pre-perspective painting, the verso icon. And inefficient sleep follows inefficient sleep, and solitude accumulates like so many leavings or wrinkles of sad age, or lessons of life learned and unlearned because we live in time. Such a sad, inefficient opportunity left blank, a moment of nothing perfected to a lifestyle performed for the dream of a camera obscura that follows after the lights have ceased and the crew gone. Imagine to carry over to the sleep of the real, from the imagined real to the performance of solitary sleep. What position, what fare, what dumb show. 3. Cognizance. The sense of motion is natural as if truth. Our skin membranes that withhold our fluid bodies from an exterior aridity, of spill, of infection, of change, of desiccation, of decomposition, or at least from what we enjoy. But the attendant sense of dislocation defies the law of the single whole. When played out, a here is never again except as a permanence of there, or so fleeting near here as to incite wonder. And so he wakes, first of all covered in the sweats of the impervious image, recalling and calling to her as if she could share the space in the now. Wakes clear-headed, sure of the failure of the imaging sense, fully sure of how meaning tracks without fear, as if in the hunt of some vital organ for transplant and transport to the first world country. In that manner she causes the sensation of waking, just then, as a trace of the faint trail, cold now as it had been for so long, nevertheless incites the hunter in that logical convolution where the hunter identifies and then becomes the one hunted. At this point it happens. This the lesson. A number is so much it cannot paint absence, because space is always space between, being nothing without definition and edge boundaries. That act always confirms state. The of what remains a question in the deep dark of morning before the sun and before any hint of natural life. The of what that is caused, even a momentary oscillation from the effect, that is truly the object and subject of the physical articulation, like perspiration just then. The question so like a the, after sensing an echo, physically imprinted momentarily on the auditory organ. Beyond the actual hearing, after the spent sound, but the plain physical affect of its former present. And just as easily, the what slides into who, even if resistant a bit, the further slide to whom. And the question evolves from the abject side of distant truth to the palpable matter of a skin, a scent of hair, a flash of color shot by a breeze or a shake of head. The images awaken, sharp like any but the most devastating earthquakes, as if beyond image, as the French say, like her touch for real. For who is one body? In that sharp shake awake, the slap of life from so lost to deep darkness, she an image brings him into cognizance, as if into being itself. The who so importantly affecting a whom into a who in a play of subject and object, and the dance of light and scent. So what was prior in the dreamless sleep, in the absent light, in the black room that does not exist beyond simple myth, in the dead of time itself? Dead as in rock, glass, clock, tide. Wake as in beyond death, a ritual perhaps. The present. Take life as a gift. To possess it at the present moment in the City of Angel is better than any other she could quickly name offhand. In City Terrace at this very moment there are birds making sound. They flit from perch in the tall bush and hedge amid petals the color of flesh skin, some wine, and the rare cut of ripe nectarine. This she knows will never pass again, and she is witness to a singularity. It is enough to surpass the need for sex, enough in a true way, so die just then and having fully realized the stuff of living completely. So she inhales just like no other human ever has, and holds for a split powerful atoms of air, the very keys to life, and peers out of the curved windows of Lomas Terrace to the City of Angels. It is a gift she gives herself, she knows, and touches her forearm with 3 fingers of her left hand, slow, in a manner that would excite him, so simple were he here and awake, both at the same time, this once. To touch oneself is so much more than plain confirmation. It is rather the impossibility of the gift, at once inconsequential and of great consequence. She exhales and disperses that particular piece of air, having tasted its youth, having made it function, and having done so, sent it to plant, to tree most of all, she hopes. To imagine ends because a simple transition is plain logic, she knows, poor in its waste and wide in its aim, and therefore resists the definition of origin and of end, rejects etiology as a disease in itself. She takes light and warms, breathes, and hears birds who use air like stair, like slide, like piece of thing, and grateful for the present precisely because it incarnates undefined by an imaginary what was and an oppressive will be. City terrace. And just as easily it is a fear, loose and without referent, no cause in its present wrappings, just as easily a fear like heights or open spaces or some strange insect. She is, after all, in so dry a place on the planet, rain, it seems, is never more than a memory, which is a dream, which is a lie, which is dead anyways. Before she reaches her near wrist, she finds wonder in an apprehension, so silent, colorless and pale, very unlike skin, more like air and cough and draught. It is a fear and a means to fear, boundless in its awe in an unbordered field of play, dislocated like flight. Just then, Lomas is a negation of the valley and all. And the undulation of surface, taken for still in the moment of present, as present, fluctuations in space, so that up and down simultaneously are beside one another, that is Lomas. Sheets of curved space, a surface that fights you and holds you and sets you up. She knows, like the valley, but its negation, an affirmation of sky instead of the valley's emulation of hell and tectonic underpinnings, the semper obscura of the beneath and core. Simple, she believes, in her simple act of taking in air and expelling air in a rhythm she is making life in a progressive tense, in an idealization of invisible air, a palpable, sensible body of body. If fear is a gift in time, dead time, across a still undulation of curved space, and if, too, an affirmation of ritual, as in the dance of the olfactory when confronting the magic of flight, then the gift of life holds out the promise of affirmation as so much petal of color before a casual stop of bird, not more, as in a spill of hours, and a desiccation of them as well, some allocentric. She hears the sound of birds, close to perceiving the birds themselves, birds, air, petals, skin, alive in the presence of the gift. 5. What is taken in sex? Streets do meet. For example, the Boulevard Santa Monica and Wilshire, or Santa Monica and Sunset meet and cross in different zones in the city, in the sight of the angels. Do on the west side, a side of diasporic New York, and on the other, a sunset of Spanish, stubborn resistance to bear flag and grisly extinction. People do too. The clearest metaphor is sex in the sense of the act, motion, and conflation, and in its sense of procreation, as the killing of death in stifling hour. Now, near the cross of Sunset in Santa Monica, in Echo Park and in Silver Lake, 2 people wait in separate houses, simultaneously thinking of each other, at the same time wondering if procreation had begun at recent coupling, in the exchange of body scent, and the pressure and motion of intimate touch. It was 5 days after the Santa Monica freeway collapse at La Cienega, beside the Kaiser Hospital, where each, unknown to the other, took plus and minus tests in the modern fear from intimacy that scores so much contemporary energy. But sex as a metaphor is a weak lie, at best. For to envision anything that is not sex as sex is so transparent a strategy as to delight no one except practitioners of psychology and religion. It is rather, as in is, as cut sense or context meaning, or best of all, a buts connection, a metonym. His house in Echo Park, halfway between the lake and Alvarado, up a poor hill, is in a profound sense an intermediary link between his body and the violent number of just a week past. That is, house is metonym for him and for the earthquake. But in the sharp and sudden and over before it is conceived essence of the large number, there is the echo's tale that lingers, that is nothing and that it is not, but it inspires meaning for the 5 days later aftershock, so well timed in the act of sex, the very act that might signal his procreation awaiting so proves. House tying self and tectonic shift in autonomy, which otherwise might be construed as metaphor himself in the earthquake, or worse, of orgasm and the earthshake into a natural orgasm. Hers is in Silver Lake, near a park, creased beside another hill, closest bird, connected by sunset as boulevard and his transitory view of magenta smog display from respective front flat windows at each birth of night across the city of night. Her name is monosyllabic, consonantal, a fact that fought her blind until she moved to the locus of epicenters far beside the far coast, and for the first time in a city of vowels, appended her name and acquired an unexpected measure of peace, which now, in the expectation of shock, is a diminished peace, once scratched and worn, inefficient to the demands of life in the present. Coupled at the instant 5 days after the 6.7 in a violent heave of ground and groan, cry, of her house walls, window, and stuff, she grabbed for him to pull him even closer than sex can unite to, and dug her nails and pulled 8 tracks of scratch across his insensate back, almost as if to recount and arouse the matter of fear itself. It is a period of weight that the ether pervades, the heavy pressure measured in atmospheres of the period of weight, intention, apprehension, desire, and anxiety. Her house is redolent with passion, everywhere signs of activity. Long cracks emerge from nowhere on the walls and dive towards joints. There must still be sharp bits of glass everywhere, from the mirror and glass and soul deco cat that crashed, invisible and heckling shards recanting. And beyond semen is perhaps the ubiquity of fertilization itself that so writes each room with the smell of skin and the narration how people are made. After so telling a tectonic clash, other shocks will follow. Of this there can be no doubt. She knows and waits and crosses days off calendars as if numbers meant anything more than fabrication by men to underwrite pain. So they measure distance. He from Echo Park to a womb in doubt. She from Silver Lake to a genital of liquid. From oil retort to shards of yet indeterminate weight. Metonym is measured from metonym in a mediation of pretense. And a pregnant span is something both spiritual, both spatial and temporal, kinesis and spiritus. Man is fluid, woman is fluid. It is an unbearable weight without end because so pervasive even as to cut sleep, like adulterated drug, impure and fooling only those who desire. So much in number as if number were life, so much in sequence, in order, in link and line. An aftershock is like an echo awaited, but a new quake again. Like a human born, a period of heavy weight in a present of perpetual acuity, awake in apprehension, even in sleep, counting out so many dead numbers, life, consequence, chaos. 6. Acting sex. In this city, sex followed the automobile. It was an albeit necessary afterthought. Orgasm here is literally the consequence of a sex drive. In the time of aftershocks, nothing stops. That the Santa Monica freeway is down stops no one. People fuck in vans defiantly flaunt before angels in awesome free flight. One couple does from Atlantic Boulevard down Whittier Boulevard, 6th Street, Wilshire, and Santa Monica, and rough straight line to the Pacific Coast Highway and the ocean itself. In an act of ritual creation from ocean to ocean. They recognize their small human irony. He from the Pacific edge of the continent lives just off Atlantic Boulevard, and she from the right coast lives in Venice, just off the Pacific. They drive holding each other's genitals like keys to the wonders of the time. And in motion at Main and Hill, they capture the aftershock. Something is confirmed, at the very least a statement of existence, at the most a deification. For this couple, consumption must always follow copulation. And they find the greatest distance from his ancestral cuisine and hers in the simulacrum of Africa, just blocks from the aftershock. Their economy is simple. Friction requires fructose. 7. Sex among the dead. Action is late, then capitalism or postmodernism, and before ask, he recalls the lyric and fashions the request to crash at her place rather than being in no shape for driving, return to Pacoima. They could tomorrow find together Richie Valens' grave and visit the Adobe Mission, all as they stop by his place to gather his stuff, and maybe if the bent for morbidity and vacuous voyeur leaves her, check out Cal State Northridge to bear witness to almost 7 with all senses turned up full. Her place in Whittier is her place, marked so by a crisscrossing across every square foot, by small regular print on long sheets of paper, by menageries of things, the origins of each of which she could recite like water, and by the mantle of confidence she takes on within its confines, fence, street, hedge, walls, particular light, familiar procession of clouds pausing en route to La Puente. Of course it is no, but there is no rest, for each such occasion affords the opportunity to perform, and it is the delivery that, after all, is what truly communicates. There is no, and there is no, and neither can touch the other in shimmer, sheen, or effect. This could be, and so is the occasion to extrapolate. Not only could he not stay, but why not? Their trip to Ensenada was off. So in the wait for timing and the formation of posture, nature interrupts with an aftershock, it being, after all, January 22nd, exactly p.m., and it is an event and a moment expected in hard anticipation. For this is the term of aftershocks. an interim of sensory arousal, a reason for sexual acts, for the right of remaking the human race, for making life in a physical way, from the writing moans and sudden shaking of two couple as if outside time, beyond being, as the Russians say, or beyond life, as the Quebecois poet bemoaned a life truncated all too soon. Absence is the tellus of a juncture among three rivers. But no is an affirmation, taking loose time and slapping in order to diss the shaking earth, a move bearable only on solid ground, far from the bleeding tectonics where lack of motion gives birth to both flippant and careless abandon and unbearable levity that is otherwise meted out fluidly between two people engaged in sex and borne on the rim tentatively. That it isn't a move that bases its trajectory on absolute mass and firmness of spirit. One can therefore assume an action as if on a flat and immobile place where the dance of the self is all that truly orchestrates any meaning from the solitary motion in the still and near dead sight. Our stage, if you will, as in the transitory feat, locating realization in daily increment, a stage for working out the hectic pace and consequent effects of being, where on stage supersedes at in the fact of self-articulation, as that born of stone and bedrock, where negation is a proprietary impulse as much as the real limits of stage, her stage, as in state of being, no, in the here, no. The active agency, the agent's act, just at the actor's agent, delimiting the walls of hours of potential within the confines of so limited, so lighted a stage and stage of being. In the bright light and the systole diastole music of any auditor's any moment of pure reception taken from the actor's pure light, transparent truth, the negation of blurring of lies. No, nothing in any country, no, never. The final section, 8. Instance the first loss. This then is the sum of the moments collected involuntarily in frantic instances of wide sensory receptivity. The recollection of a cruise on Whittier Boulevard may be broken into image pieces of sensory data, of sense of youth, the only gloss of Tootie's pure white 13-coat lacquer off the long and at times dancing hood, may be so in a defiant rush to individuate, and to, by the law of opposites, the trick of irony, valorites what it ostensibly occludes, that is, offer flash of scene and sense in a disguised masquerade decoy cover from the awful fact of order and that of unforgiving sequence. There is a sense that any drive down Whittier, regardless how imagined, must in reality proceed according to fashion, which is, after all, an order that posits at base structure that motion must have direction, sequence, and singular occupation of transitory space. The recollection of broken sensations, of images tossed vividly, is so much a lie, one constructed to imbue subject matter, that is to locate a fleeting present with meaning, tautologically meaningful because it is so, and further a lie because the comfort of the truth is a well-sealed casket in black peat and damp. For at base, the cruise down Whittier is as governed a flight across the Santa Monica to the San Diego at night after sex, as cast as left turn from Hill onto Main, admiring the huge glass windows of the cafe, as the sequence from first, in a non-numerical sense, to second, and on to last. In truth, the infinity from 0 to 1 is never transversed, because we are never allowed nothing zero, never face the awful lacuna and lake of difference, but are set so deceptively in motion from the first swimming of crazed sperm and the slow dance of proud ovum. And in the simple sequence of events, it is the truth and reality, the unavoidable sequence of eventness, that we may try to obfuscate with color and rhyme and a trick of art, psychosis, orgasm, fear, love. This is the awful lesson and state of being of the instances of the aftershock. 6.7 is done, written into memory like fire so abruptly we could observe the finality of everything, but done nevertheless. But the months agonize afterwards, agon, and we live, alive, heightened to defy what is to follow. And what is to follow is a truth and a reality we have no business to restrict, for it ignores our significance, so much like a wounded god or a boarding goddess. We can defy precisely because of insignificance, small waves of particles, of density and length too small to affect. And so we prescribe the only trick that works, the act that makes humans, the act that sets up the impossible synchronization of two bodies in motion, that writes as subject the stuff that is the very line itself, an act so sacred it has abandoned itself. After 6.7, at the sight of angels in the city of night, sex is an act of divine passion, a moment of intensity that unwrites the instanceness of raw sensing nerve endings, rewrites act itself with agency in a drive toward the sea. In the time of the aftershocks, love is the sex of the act, is the acts performed in the sight of the angels, defiant before the gods, before nature, coupling in the city of night in the bare and awful span.